This is Tamara from mooglyblog.com, and in this video I'd like to show you a little bit about wet blocking with a hot iron. This is a technique I use for when I have something with a sport or heavier weight yarn, something nice and chunky like these letters. This is not a technique I would use for thread snowflakes or doilies or anything where each stitch kind of has to be arranged. This is something that works better for a nice solid piece like this. What it does is it takes something that comes off the hook looking like this and turns it into a nice solid letter. These are made out of cotton. You can absolutely do this with cotton, and it keeps a lot of the stitch integrity. You can also do this with acrylic. However, you have to be very careful with the acrylic in particular, because if you do it the same way with the acrylic as you do with the cotton, you will actually melt the acrylic. This can be a good thing or a bad thing. It just depends on what you're going for. First, let's try it with the cotton. I'll move these finished pieces out of the way and pick up one that looks likely here. How about an E? Now you can see I've got a nice protected surface with a towel on it. This is just an ironing board with a regular old towel, household towel on top. I've got a hot iron at the hottest setting, and I've got this cloth here which is really wet. It's not dripping, but it is very, very wet. So I'll start, and you can see I've left the tails here so I can sew this on later as an applique. So I'm not going to worry about those right now. I'll just move them out of the way. What I'm going to start doing is arranging my letter the way I want it to lay. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it should be close. So you can see that's an E. Started out looking all crumpled, but there is an E there. So I've got it basically the way I want it to be. I'm going to take my wet towel, and I'm going to very carefully lay it over my E. And then I'm going to kind of feel, maybe take a peek underneath, make sure everything's laying as close to exactly the way I want it as possible. Then, when I feel like I've got everything just so, I pick up my very hot iron. I'm going to quickly press down. And you can see all the steam that comes up. And that's the quickest I want to do. Or rather, the longest I want to let it lay. And you can see already it's starting to form much more solidly into the shape of an E here. And again, this is 100% cotton, as is the towel. That's very important. If you use an acrylic towel on this, you're going to have a melted mess on your iron. So I'll find another really wet spot, lay it over the E, and give it one more zap with the iron here. You can see all that steam comes right up. And be careful now, this is hot. So I'll move that over here into my bowl. And you can see the letter is steaming, so again, be very careful, especially if you're doing this with acrylic. But with the cotton here, it dries and cools down pretty quickly. But you can see what was just a wrinkly mess is now a really nice letter. It's not stiff, it still bends. It's great for sewing on. You can still get through all these stitches with your darning needle or your tapestry needle, yarn needle. But the letter has taken its shape quite nicely. Now, as I said, that's 100% in cotton. You can do this with acrylic. This is a letter V, believe it or not, made with Caron Simply Soft. Now, there are different degrees to which you can do this with the acrylic. Starts out the same. You lay it out flat, and you put your wet cloth on top. Now, again, this wet cloth is particularly important with acrylic, because if you put a hot iron right on acrylic, it will melt and ruin your iron. Not to mention, of course, whatever you've made. So I put a very wet towel over that V. Now, there are two levels to which I can do this. The first is to just hold the iron on top without letting any weight go on the V. I don't know if you can hear it. There's just a little bit of steam there. Again, there was no weight. You can see that I've blocked the V, not completely flat, but it's certainly taken on its shape. Now, it still has stitch definition. You could still get through these stitches with your yarn needle. However, there's a further degree you can take this to called killing it. You can kill the acrylic, which is much more severe and very, very permanent. And I want to show you how that's done too. I would do that, if I was going to kill this, I would normally weave in these ends first, because there's no getting back through here. You could get through here after you kill it, maybe with a very sharp needle and some thread, but I don't think you're going to be getting back through with a regular yarn needle. So I'll put my wet cloth on top, And this time I'm going to go ahead and press down like I did with the cotton. You can see that steam. You can see the shape even shows up a little bit in the towel. And already, even just like that, just with that much pressure, again, this is hot, be careful, you can see the stitches have flattened out. It's shiny, but the acrylic has actually melted and fused together. Now, like I said, there's a lot of times when you want to do this on purpose, but not always. So be careful and to know what you're doing before you push down with that iron. The nice thing about Killed Acrylic is it has incredible drape. You can see just how much that is. But it's also now a solid piece of fabric. Again, good or bad, depending on what you want to do. But that's basically all there is to killing acrylic. And depending on what sort of yarn you do it to, you can get very different effects. And that's wet blocking with a hot iron. Thanks for watching.